And, whoa, look at Magoo. Magoo streaks into the...
Thorpe's got past Gabors. They lock handlebars as they go through, but Thorpe's done.
Here comes Bradshaw to the outside of Bale. He takes over the number 2 position, and Bradshaw is not done.
Welcome, Motocross History team. Today I want to talk about Paul Malin and his 500 career, or his career in the 500 MXGPs. And one of the biggest points of confusion that I've had with regards to the sport. Now, Paul Malin will forever be known, and is probably the biggest moment, as he states, in his career is winning the 1994 Motocross Des Nations, breaking the United States 13-year winning streak. And he rode a 125 that day and went 1-1 in the 125 class, beating his toughest competitor in Jeff Emig. It was a big deal for Team UK or Team Britain. They had not won an MXDN in 26 years, and it's been longer than that now since they won their last one, which was that one. But they managed to put it all together with him, Rob Herring, and Kurt Nickel. But one of the things that confused me the most is his 500 career. Paul Malin, he was one of those guys that got into the sport really early and got his license at 18 and started professionally racing and was really good at it. I think from what I can research, the first class he entered was the 500 MXGPs. And he was on Team Kawasaki. In 1990, of course, they had just signed Dave Thorpe. Kawasaki did, so he was riding a production KX500 and was still doing crazy things. Now, Paul Malin, little guy, but this guy had near perfect form. I mean, if you want to point out and you want to use an example of a good example of what form should look like, it was Paul Malin. And like I said, he was a little guy and he was very young. And Paul Malin was, almost with the exception of David Thorpe and Kurt Nickel, the guys that were in Paul Malin's kind of generation were known for being super fast. I would throw Rob Herring in there. I would throw Jamie Dobb in there. And they were super fast out of the gate and just excellent riders with excellent form. But these guys did not like to train. And you could tell, it's not like I saw them duck out of training. No, you could tell in their riding. And the biggest tell for a guy that's not into endurance training outside of riding a dirt bike is they fade. And Paul Malin was your quintessential fader. And going into the 500s, everybody knows that's ridden a 500, knows that bike is harder than 250, harder than a 125. It is harder to swing around. It's an extra probably 15 to 20 pounds, but that 15 to 20 pounds may as well be 150 pounds when you're 30 minutes into a moto. And you could tell when you would watch Rob Herring, like when he went into it in 1998 and rode that awesome CR500 with the aluminum frame. And same thing with Paul Malin in 1990, 91, and 92. He would just fade. Now, somebody must have made an impression on him in 1991, probably halfway through the season or early in the season, like, hey, dude, you have to do some off the bike training when you're not riding. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to go ride once or twice during the week and then go race. Because your competitors are practicing throughout the week and they're doing off the bike endurance training. The guys that were strong at that point, I mean, Paul Malin just came into the 500 class when they were at their pinnacle. 1989 had just passed, probably the best year ever for the 500 MXGPs. 1990 had a bunch of switch ups as far as it goes with factory, the silly season. And Paul Malin came into that in 1990, where you had Dave Thorpe, a longtime HRC rider, switching over to Kawasaki. You had Kurt Nickel, who had done pretty well, finished in the top 3 when he was at Kawasaki from 86 through 89, switching back to KTM. So you had a lot of that going on, and you had Jeff Leask, who had come off a great freaking year in 1989 and was close in the points, right behind Gabors and Thorpe. And you had Gabors, who just barely missed out when he got hurt at San Marino, Italy. He was neck and neck in 1989 when he got hurt at a 500 title, or maybe even win a 500 title. The 1991 campaign got up to number 4, and then in 1992 just decided, no, you know what, I don't want to race the 500 class anymore. I want to go to the 250 class for 1992, and ended up going to the 250 class in 1992, which I have just, I've done a lot of videos on the 1992 season. Ended up going into one of the most stacked 250 classes of all time in 1992, and got his butt handed to him. I think he finished 17th in 1992 in the 250 class. And in 1992, like I said, finished 21st. 1993, I think he finished 18th. 1994, he finished right around there too, 17th, 18th. And then he was like, and because of his size, he could do this. You know what? I'm just going to go to the 125 class. And then in 1995, he finished like 11th again in the 125 class. 1996 was his best year in the 125 class, where he finished 2nd. And then once again, it all went downhill from there. Like he stayed with the 125 class in 97, ended up finishing like, I don't know, 18th or 19th or 20th. And that was kind of his thing. Never could stick with one class, but out of all those classes, and he tried every single one of them, and I'm sure he gave it all, his whole heart at some point. He was by far the most consistent and had the most talent. 18, 19, and 20 years old in the 500 class. In 1990, 1991, and in 1992. 1991 was his best year, where, as you can see here, he finished where he ended up winning the French GP, and then in Norg Holland ended up winning the first moto and got caught up in the start in the second moto, and did not end up doing well. I think he got like 8th or 10th or something like that in the second moto. Of all the classes that he raced, racing all three, testing all three, in my personal opinion, he had the most talent and the most, I guess you could say, upside in the 500 class. So what we're going to do here is we're going to show a recap of his French and Holland victories. And you can tell, as I show it, you can tell that he was absolutely on fire. Now, people inside the MXGP world, the 500 MXGP world, knew about Paul Malin. One of his in 1990, one of his biggest assets was his starts, and I'm going to show you here, especially in Germany. This guy hole shot, and when he got a hole shot in Hockstone and in Germany, I mean, especially in Germany, it looked like he was on the track by himself, especially in that second moto, which I'll show you here. And then in 1991, you'll see the upcoming, and then let me back up a little bit. And then toward the end of 1990, in Namur, that's where he really made a name for him. Talent as he does in his pinky finger, and what I wouldn't give to be that good on a 500, especially during his age. So sit back. First, we'll show the Namur highlights, about a couple minutes, and then we'll show his French win. And then after that, we'll show, if you're still sticking around, we'll show his Holland win. If I got anything wrong or anything off base, please let me know. I love learning about this from you guys, and especially you guys that live in Europe. I love learning more about this, why he decided to switch around, why he didn't stick with the 500 class. Please let me know, and especially if I got anything, if I committed an error in any way, talking about, throwing out numbers or the history, also please let me know, and enjoy these videos. And until the next one, we'll see you.
To pull through. It's going to be very interesting. Eric Gabors wanted to win so desperately here today. He has never won here overall at Namur, his home circuit, and that really before, well, there are some stories running around the paddock that Gabors will actually be retiring after today from motocross. I'm sure he'd like to go out on a high, but Malin at the moment is really on a high, and Thorpe moves up into second, the current world champion. Van de Ven down there into third, then it's Pantella. Behind Pantella there you saw Pearson. Malin through in first. Thorpe follows there in second. He'll be no doubt looking for a way past Malin. We wait. Here is Malin. He's still there in the lead. At Thorpe you can see visibly beginning to close. David Thorpe desperately wanting to win here today to reinsert himself at the top. Well, not at the top of the championship, but certainly in the eyes of his fans and in the eyes of Kawasaki. Gabors is indeed beginning to close as we pick up the leaders again, first and second. You can see Thorpe, can see the back wheel of Malin's Kawasaki. And there indeed is Gabors. Appears to be closing on Pearson now. Leif Pearson it is. Number 11. Malin. You hear the commentators scream it's Malin that leads, but Thorpe now stuck firmly into Malin's back wheel and beginning to put the pressure on. Can the young 18-year-old from Derby in England hold off the current world champion, and indeed the 3 times 500cc world champion? Away from him. Thorpe still has not yet managed to find a way round the young Brit Malin. Van de Ven safe at the moment in third. He will have to keep a good eye on his shoulder because Thorpe now takes up the running. Malin making a small mistake coming into the trees there, and Thorpe found a way through. And here they come. It'll be David Thorpe taking the waves of the supporters and spectators as he pops a ginormous wheelie down the road. David Thorpe, number 1, should indeed safely win this first opening moto. Malin slides the bike in there in second place. And Thorpe coming round to take the checkered flag with a wave to his crowd. And that must be relief. Just look at that.
Race 1 got underway when the gate dropped. And into the corner they went. 40 riders on 500 machines, and it was Malin, the Brit, that led away from the start. Being followed by 58 Soren Mortensen, the Dane, back of the pack, but Malin right at the front. Mortensen there, 58 in second. In back for third, it's Billy Lyles, number 6. Kawasaki's 1, 2 and 3. Leon Combi, 24, is in there as well. Martin's now up and past Lyles into second place behind Malin. And these two are really having a scrap to remember. The KTM and the Kawasaki, second and third. Certainly the crowd here at Norg at this Dutch Grand Prix really enjoying this spectacular. These 500 boys hoisting these bikes up through the sand. And there is our race leader, the Brit, the 19-year-old Derbyshire lad, Paul Malin, riding the Works 500 Kawasaki. I'm sure his boss, Alec Wright, will be sitting back in the paddock very happy at this. Martin's on the KTM number 4. Holds on to second. Lyles hanging on to third. Jobay up there with Banks. That's 28. That's Mark Banks, another one of the Brit riders. Just the once. But Malin there looking to be very much a Grand Prix winner in the making. Certainly a World Championship 500cc Grand Prix winner in the making. Now that Kurt Nickel unfortunately has gone, and as Malin showboats at the finish for the crowd, Martins follows him home in second position. Third then it was Kawasaki's Billy Lyles.